In your work, you talk a lot about the New World Order. What is the New World Order?
The New World Order is a private group of ultra-rich bankers who are offshore. They're above the U.S., they're above Iran, Russia, Venezuela. They are international, and they are creating a network of international laws to regulate and control and dominate nations. They openly state that they want to deindustrialize countries. They want to bankrupt the population. They want a poor population that has to go to the government for handouts. They want a domesticated population. So the New World Order is what every other dictatorship is called for in history. They are people who want a planetary dictatorship run by a group of plutocratic financiers. It is world government of, for, and by private bankers.
And what you say is that the American government is a puppet of the New World Order. Is that right?
Absolutely. I am a patriot. I believe in the free market. I believe in the red, white, and blue Constitution, Bill of Rights. And everything that the supposed government is doing is the opposite of that. It is 180 degrees from what this nation is supposed to be. And in every poll, the American people are against the wars. They are against the open borders. They are against the police state. But the central government does the opposite of what the people wants, and they're setting up this control grid to try to suppress the American people.
So how do you see the future of American politics?
The United States is a corrupt empire that has been used by international banks and the global crime syndicate to expand their empire worldwide. They have basically used the United States like a credit card to pay for their world government. And I see the United States entering the greatest crisis since its founding 235 years ago. So I see the United States as a hijacked nation, a nation that is being used as a tool or an engine of international oligarchs, international financiers. I see the United States in danger of being collapsed, but at the same time I see a massive awakening to the globalist agenda taking place. And so I know that we have a fighting chance of defeating the tyranny.
Following up on that, some people go further and say that a collapse for America is inevitable. What do you say to that?
The globalists want to have a collapse in the United States. And yes, we are in a very real danger of collapsing because the central banks have gotten this country deep in debt. They've done it by design, and now they've cut off the money supply. And the economy for the last year has been in a free fall. Real unemployment's up at 20%. And so, yes, I've seen many scholars in the United States and worldwide talk about the collapse of the United States. That is a real danger. But again, the New World Order bankers only want to collapse the United States so that they can come back in, pose as the saviors, and bring control over the nation, and then reform the United States as a fascist engine to carry out military operations against any free nation in the world. They openly state that the United States will be the pit bull, the attack dog. The American people will be used to go after every free nation in the world. So the United States is in a process of going from a corrupt oligarchy to a fascistic, Hitlerian pit bull meant to go out and literally wage war against the planet. Meanwhile, the international financiers will sit in Switzerland and London and Paris and Berlin and blame America for all the tyranny when they own our private Federal Reserve and are launching the attack.
One of the things you talk about in your film is that the American government is allegedly trying to build a civil army to be able to use unsuspecting civilians for their own purposes. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. Legislation has passed the House and the Senate, and they're in the process right now of ratifying it, to create, in the words of the New York Times, a 7 million person army. And they openly state that citizens will be spying on each other, that this will be a paramilitary force domestically and internationally, to be a civilian force that after the U.S. military takes over a country, then this civilian military force will come in and administer the country. So the United States is being used as a colony of the offshore bankers to create a social service class to administer world government.
Some people say in the next couple of years there's going to be a revolution in America. Could that be possible?
the globalists hate America, but at the same time they know that the American people are waking up, and there's over 100 million armed American citizens who understand that being armed is a basic right and who refuse to be disarmed. And so, yes, we've gotten the internal government documents, the state police documents. They are very concerned about a revolution because they know that as they bankrupt the nation, as they turn us into third world slaves, that the people will resist. And so they are attempting to set up a high-tech police state in the United States as a rearguard action so that as they've stolen the country blind to build their world government, using the U.S.'s energy and money and finance to build it, now they're done with us. But the final phase is putting a police state in so they can successfully rob the United States without having the American people ever take control of the country and then prosecute them and arrest them.
Congressman Paul, can you speak as you have in the past to the New World Order's plan for a one-world government? Will they succeed? Will they stop them?
They're going to succeed if we don't do something about it.
Is there a plan for a New World Order, a one-world government, and how do we stop it?
Well, I think even our first President Bush said that the New World Order was in tune, and that's what they were working for. The UN is part of that government. They're working right now very significantly for a North American Union. That's why there's a lot of people in Washington that don't care too much about our borders. They have a philosophic belief that national sovereignty is not important. It's also the reason I have made very strong suggestion that we need not be in the United Nations for our national security.
I've got another question from a YouTube watcher. Let's watch, please.
Good evening, candidates. This is Seekster from Arlington, Texas, and this question is for Ron Paul. I've met a lot of your supporters online, but I've noticed that a good number of them seem to buy into this conspiracy theory regarding the Council of Foreign Relations and some plan to make a North American Union by merging the United States with Canada and Mexico. These supporters of yours seem to think that you also believe in this theory. So my question to you is, do you really believe in all this, or are people just putting words in your mouth?
90 seconds.
Well, it all depends on what you mean by all of this. The CFR exists, the Trilateral Commission exists, and it's a, quote, conspiracy of ideas. This is an ideological battle. Some people believe in globalism, others of us believe in national sovereignty. And there is a move on toward a North American Union, just like early on, there was a move on for a European Union, and it eventually ended up. So we had NAFTA and moving toward a NAFTA highway. These are real things. It's not somebody made these up. It's not a conspiracy. They don't talk about it, and they might not admit about it, but there's been money spent on it. There was legislation passed in the Texas legislature unanimously to put a hold on it. They're planning on millions of acres taken by eminent domain for an international highway from Mexico to Canada, which is going to make the immigration problem that much worse. So it's not so much a secretive conspiracy. It's a contest between ideologies, whether we believe in our institutions here, our national sovereignty, our Constitution, or are we going to further move in the direction of international government, more UN? You know, this country goes to war under UN resolutions. I don't like big government in Washington, so I don't like this trend toward international government. We have a WTO that wants to control our drug industry, our nutritional products, so I'm against all that, but it's not so much as a sinister conspiracy. It's just knowledge is out there. If we look for it, you'll realize that our national sovereignty is under threat.
Congressman Paul, thank you.
I have one final question. Senator Mitch McConnell said his one goal in life is to make sure that Barack Obama is a one-term president. Would you approve of that? And do you think that it is good to put your party politics above the country?
I don't know whether those are the choices, but if I'm running for the nomination to run against Obama, how would I be able to say?
Well, did you think that?
How would I be able to say that?
If you were elected and a Democratic senator stood up and said, essentially, I'm going to obstruct everything because my goal is to make sure you're a one-term president. And I don't care what happens to the country. Do you think that's appropriate? I
would be tested to overcome that type of an attitude by building coalitions and talking to everybody, because I can talk to everybody across the political spectrum.
But is it appropriate?
I wouldn't talk like that. You know, matter of fact, there are other candidates even on our side. That's what they dwell on. But as much as I dislike the Federal Reserve, I don't dwell on Bernanke and I don't dwell on the president. I mean, if you ask me, I usually say, well, I don't think he's done a very good job. But I see it philosophically that people have certain ideas, and as long as they believe these ideas, people in government will react in that manner. As long as the people endorse the idea that they're to be taken care of and we're supposed to be the policemen of the world, and printing money is a good idea, can't do anything about it. So it isn't Bernanke. To me, it's a system. It's understanding monetary policy. It isn't Obama, and it isn't George Bush. It's a system. So it isn't Bernanke. To me, it's a system. It's understanding monetary policy. It isn't Obama, and it isn't George Bush. It's a system.
Barack is like the manager of Burger King. All presidents are, including Bush. It's like this: when your fries are cold, if your burger is not done right, you go back to Burger King, America, or your government, and you say, my burger's cold, I want new fries. First, you go to the cashier, that's the courts. You argue to the courts. The courts, if you can't get no justice with the cashier, you say, let me see the manager. I want to go to the Supreme Court. I want to see the president. The manager comes out. Hi, what can I do for you? Now the manager can override the decisions of the cashier, but you never get to see the franchise owner of Burger King. If you really have a problem with your burger, you need to go see the franchise owner. We need to go to the top or to the bottom. We need to go to where the real architecture of government is, and it's not in a president. It's in a global scheme.
So it isn't Bernanke. To me, it's a system. It's understanding monetary policy. It isn't Obama, and it isn't George Bush. It's a system. So it isn't Bernanke. To me, it's a system. It's understanding monetary policy. It isn't Obama, and it isn't George Bush. It's a system on foreign policy. It's been around a long time. It's a foreign policy of intervention that I.
Did you hear about that recent Bilderberg Group meeting in what was it, Shantyville, Virginia?
Yeah, recently there was one, and there were some reports on it. I didn't read a whole lot about it, but they certainly were there.
What do you think they're doing there? Seriously, what do you think they're doing there?
Well, they probably get together and talk about how they're going to control the banking systems of the world and natural resources. And we get together and we talk about how we're going to get our freedom back. So we have our own things to talk about.
Barack Obama's been given a pass by the Blue Bloods. He's been given the okay by certain secret societies for them to let him in. I truly believe imperialism and fascism needs a facelift. And that facelift is going to have to be black. And the reason why I believe that, simply because I think they're trying to go into Africa. Well, they're already in Africa, but they want to totally control all the natural minerals that they're going to need to carry themselves into the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd centuries. You follow me? So I think they have to go through a phase of galvanizing the masses of dark-skinned people that truly believe that change needs to come, but the change that they're talking about is not necessarily change for the better as far as the masses of the people. It's probably a better change for them. It's not going to change for us, the little man on the totem pole. And no one looks at the agenda. As long as he positions himself right, have the right tie on, have the right smile, repeats the slogans over and over and drives it home, the average American is just going to swallow it hook, line, and sinker. And we don't even know what the agenda is. Now, a lot of times, we don't want to know the issue. Right. We don't want to know the issue. We feel, what do you call this thing where you get this false sense of gratification, but because a black man is in office, everything's going to be all right. No, everything's not going to be all right. Yeah. Until you look into the agenda on what the Democratic Party has been about, is about, and will be about, regardless if Barack Obama is the president or not.
Listen to me now while I rap and sing. for the New World Order just put on a black face. Americans, you are in the process of globalization. You are in the process of a New World Order. Just because it has a black face don't mean a thing. Real politics is about the people. The people. The people. I, more than anybody, am ecstatic over the fact that at least the racial barrier in the White House has been broken. But now let's get down with the truth. The truth. After we leave the emotionalism alone for a minute, what do we as Americans should be looking out for? How should we be getting prepared for what's about to come? Just because we have an African-American president doesn't mean that he's not going to continue the Bush agenda. I'm not dissing anybody, but a politician is a politician. And if I can say one thing to all people in the United States, it's this: America has broken its own rules, has broken its own laws. It's time for the citizenry of the United States to actually follow its own laws. If we stay steadfast to the Constitution, at least, we won't be hit so hard with that global agenda. Here's what we were talking about the other day. If you really want to see what black governance is like, take a look at the mayors of major cities. When the cities were in power, we couldn't be the mayors. It's when the cities lost power, they put in black mayors. When the states had power, we couldn't be governors. But then when the states lose power, we got senators, governors, African-American senators and governors. Now the nation has lost power. The dollar has lost power. The world is global. Now you can get a black president because it doesn't matter. It's global now. So the real issue is this: are you going to allow this system to tempt you into their prisons, into their job, into their psyche? Follow your purpose. This is what will defeat it all. If you're on your purpose, even death respects purpose. But if my president frees Mumia Abu-Jamal, maybe he'll get my eye up. If my president could release political prisoners, maybe my eye will go up. If my president can stop ignoring police misconduct, maybe my eye will go up. But I'm not hopeful. But I know what the truth is. The truth come out of anybody's mouth. The truth don't have no color. The truth is that people are hurting. The truth is that they trying to turn us into China. The truth is we're in so much debt that the only way out is revolution or war. So now the question is, what side are you on?
The next question will be asked by Cynthia Tucker, answered first by Congressman Tancredo. Cynthia.
Congressman, recently a push to give the District of Columbia voting representation was defeated because of heavy Republican opposition. In addition, many voting rights advocates are worried about rigid voter ID laws, which require a photo ID like a driver's license. Are you concerned that some eligible voters will be denied the right to vote simply because they don't have a driver's license?
It's very clear under the Constitution that we couldn't give the vote to the residents of D.C. without an amendment to the Constitution, and it should be pursued in that manner. But when it comes to national ID cards, I mean, the identification, I think the states have the prerogative and the right and the obligations to identify the voters, and they should. But the reason I get worried about it when we start talking about it nationally is, you know, they might want to use the real ID. They might want to think it's a good excuse to have a national ID card to vote, and I am positively opposed to any move toward the national ID.